I mean, all up the glass.
He sure did.
Finger roll.
He goes back to Jordan.
Oh! As Jordan has come up with another steal.
November 13th, 1984. Just 9 games into his NBA career, Michael Jordan wasn't supposed to dominate. He was just a rookie, young, raw, unproven. But that night in Chicago, he faced George the Iceman Gervin, 4-time scoring champ, cold-blooded, a future Hall of Famer, a master, facing the kid. But MJ didn't blink. He attacked, he soared, and he dropped 45 points like he'd been doing it for years. That night, the NBA didn't just meet Michael Jordan. It met its future king. With little league experience, no legacy to fall back on, and no supporting cast to match, Michael Jordan was exposed. He could only rely on himself. He was alone in the face of danger, and he was facing one of the most dominant players anyone had ever seen. A relentless scorer, with whom he would engage in a duel that would wake him up, because many people consider November 13th, 1984 to be the turning point. Many people consider that on that cold November night, Michael Jordan finally became his airness. The NBA back then, was very different. The 70s had been an era where offense dominated. Teams scored a lot of points, a bit like in the current era. But in the 80s, the game was changing. Jordan had just arrived in the league. He had barely played 8 games, averaging 25 points per night. But at the same time, he was discovering the secrets of those increasingly tough defenses. He was learning faster than anyone else. However, the Bulls were far from competitive, despite getting off to a great start to the season. Apart from Orlando Woolridge, who was having a great season, Chicago had no other players capable of reliably supporting the spectacular rookie from North Carolina. This problem was compounded by the mistrust some fans had in his game, because let's not forget, at that point in his career, he had yet to prove himself in the NBA. All that would change during his rookie year, however, because he would have the opportunity to face all the true legends of the league who were still active. Players like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and George Gervin. A relentless scorer with a slim frame that teams had never been able to stop. Gervin was no ordinary star. He had led the NBA in scoring 4 times. He had also finished in the top 5 in the MVP race in 4 consecutive seasons. He was the classic player who was responsible for welcoming egocentric rookies like Jordan to the NBA. Because when you had to guard the Iceman, you weren't going to forget that game easily. It will haunt you in your dreams. That's why, on that November 13th, Jordan didn't just have one mission. Yes, he had to win the game. But on a Bulls team with no real aspirations, that would end up being irrelevant in the future. He had more important things to do, things that depended directly on him. The first was to go off against one of the best players in the NBA. The second was to put the clamps on George Gervin, an impossible mission for even the best defenders in the league. The teams took to the hardwood at Chicago Stadium with victory in their sights. The Bulls were particularly motivated after their great start to the season, although time would prove that they needed to improve a lot more. And the Spurs came out knowing they were the favorites, a seasoned, experienced team that was trying to fight its way out of the Western Conference. However, as soon as the game started, Michael broke the ice. After grabbing the loose ball on defense, he took off like a rocket in transition. But the most incredible thing was that when MJ reached the paint, he surprised everyone with an incredible double clutch finish that also earned him the and one. It was the perfect introduction for the Spurs to realize that he was no ordinary rookie. Meanwhile, Jordan guarded Gervin without giving him an inch of space. He was all over him the whole time, like he was his shadow, using his hands and making his life impossible. And the truth is that George was having a hard time scoring that night. That gave Jordan more confidence to try impossible things, like this great behind-the-back pass to Orlando Woolridge. His aggressive defense immediately turned into offense, although on many occasions, his teammates were unable to finish those good plays. So Michael thought, I have to do it myself. And after receiving the ball with a few seconds left on the clock, he was able to knock down a 3 that allowed the Bulls to end the first quarter with a 2-point lead. And in the second quarter, his attitude didn't change one bit. Because on one of the first plays, he got a steal, disrupting the defense with a half-court trap, to finish with a flashy dunk at the hoop. Every loose ball was an opportunity for him to get to the free throw line. He never gave up. And as a defender, it was good news to see him shoot 2 free throws instead of just 1. Although he still didn't have that incredible touch from mid-range, where he couldn't miss, he was already beginning to show flashes of his future style. On this play, he receives the ball just inside the arc, then goes to his right hand, and then pulls up in the face of his defender, who watches as he can do absolutely nothing to prevent the bucket. But at this point, the beast was already unleashed. Jordan continued to completely destroy the Spurs with his transition game. Every time he got the ball in the open floor, a highlight was guaranteed. And it was no wonder. Check out this dunk, where Jordan posterizes Ozell Jones to also get the and one. He was on fire. So, seeing this, the Bulls' game plan changed completely. They were constantly looking for MJ on backdoors like this one, because as a lob threat, he was devastating. Also in transition, where even when things went wrong for him, he was able to get to the free throw line at the very least. But when it came time to get your hands dirty on defense, MJ was there. Always attentive to every task, even when it came to rim protection. And also, he was attentive to Gervin every time he tried to get into the game. Jordan denied him the ball for the entire first half. At halftime, the Bulls had lost their lead. Now they were trailing by 4 points. Michael had been active. He had done absolutely everything. But that hadn't been enough. Reality was catching up with him. His supporting cast wasn't as good as it seemed, and he had to step it up a notch if he wanted the Chicago Bulls to win that game. So he got down to business. As always, in transition, he was the most dangerous player in the league. Look at the terrible pass he's able to control, then go on a one-man mission. He spins, then takes his time, and then drills the jumper over Mike Mitchell. Moments later, after grabbing a defensive rebound, Jordan goes on a fast break in what looks like it's going to be a coast-to-coast. However, he decides to throw a precise bounce pass to Quentin Daly, who banks the 8-footer. And right after that, he receives the ball in the mid-range to knock down a double-clutch midi, in which he also draws the foul. People were stunned by Michael's shots because they had simply never seen anything like it. It was unthinkable that a player could have those skills at that time. But the show had only just begun. Michael was already taking his time like a superstar. He was getting ready to attack, and boom! Suddenly, he surprised you with something new. This time, he returned to the mid-range to knock down yet another difficult jumper. The Spurs didn't know what to do with his speed. On every transition, he came out like a bullet and got to the hoop faster than any other player on the court. It didn't matter what you tried, you weren't going to stop him. And near the end of the third quarter, when he already had 29 points, he finally got to take a well-deserved rest. Although it wouldn't be for long. Jordan came back out in the fourth quarter to bite. He took advantage of his teammates' screens to get the little space he needed to pull up. In this case, another long two, money. His jab step was too dangerous to be taken seriously. He kept finding spaces in the paint with his footwork. Whatever the counter was, it wouldn't work, because Jordan had a counter for that counter. And when the defense finally reacted to his drives, he was able to find the open man with a spectacular pass. Look at this play, where Michael does exactly what I'm saying, finding Caldwell Jones. He didn't even have to change the playbook. The same plays worked for him all the time because the defense couldn't interpret them correctly. And of course, because he couldn't miss either. If you tried to contest the shot, he'd put the ball on the floor to find a more open shot. If your center of gravity was too low, he'd throw you off balance so he could shoot over you. If you gave him an inch more than necessary when he received the ball, he would drill the two in an instant. There was nothing you could do because he was ahead of his time. In a completely tight game where the ball was burning in the players' hands, Jordan, who had already surpassed his career high, continued with the same intensity. After recovering another loose ball, he came back out in transition, like a bolt of lightning, to finish with a layup on the other side of the court. And with that basket, with his celebration, Jordan ended the Spurs' misery. They went to Chicago Stadium looking for an easy win, but when they left, they looked scared to have witnessed the performance of a true monster. Jordan had a legendary night on both sides of the court. He delivered one of the greatest rookie performances in NBA history. 45 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. His efficiency was surreal, with splits of 67% on field goals, 100% on threes, and 72% on free throws. But the most incredible thing of all is that he put the clamps on what could be considered the best scorer in the world. Gervin only scored 28 points, 17 fewer than Michael, as he watched the kid from North Carolina outplay him with no NBA experience. He realized in real time how Michael was different from all the rookies he had faced. Now, the Bulls weren't ready to compete. It would take many years of suffering. losing to teams like the Celtics and the Pistons before Michael Jordan reached his full potential. Although his floor was to be one of the best players in the league, his ceiling was much higher. Everyone was realizing that the future belonged to Jordan, but not in a matter of years, more like in a matter of months. That night was more than just a game. It was like a turning point. MJ stopped looking up to legends like George Gervin as if they were untouchable. For the first time, he saw them as peers. The nerves? Gone. The pressure? Lifted. He finally felt like he belonged. And it wasn't even about the box score or the highlight reel. It was about belief, the kind that flips a switch and tells you, this is greatness. Jordan realized how much he loved that feeling, and from that moment on, the league would never be the same. Because that night, the NBA witnessed something different. It witnessed the arrival of the GOAT. So, was this the night that made Michael Jordan a superstar? Or was it that legendary showdown against Larry Bird's Celtics in the playoffs? Or maybe, just maybe, it's a moment only you remember, one that defined MJ in your eyes. Drop your pick in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. If you live for legendary breakdowns, epic rivalries, and the moments that made basketball history, subscribe to First 5 Hoops and join a community of real basketball fans. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest content. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.